Hello, planet positive people, fellow earthlings. So, we keep hearing that if we educated the 130 million girls who are currently denied education around the planet, it would reduce our global carbon emissions by 5%. That is huge. We should do it immediately. Luckily, there are amazing people already on it. I'm going to be speaking to one of them, Cassandra Treadwell of So They Can. She has been getting girls and boys into school in Kenya and Tanzania for the past 12 years and helping them stay there. Beyond an education that allows girls to have careers and meaningful lives, they also they delay having their kids. They have less kids because they're already busy looking after the ones they do have and taking their communities and the environment to the next levels. They are empowered in a myriad of ways. Listen up. So, my thing is I'm a bit of an eco nut. I don't know if you know that about me, but it's sort of my whole, focus is how we're going to, lower emissions. And there are all these incredible things that we can do. And obviously people know about, offshore wind and, solar farms. But one of the things that really takes people by surprise, so they've compiled this amazing list of 80 things that will draw the carbon out of the atmosphere the most efficiently. And I wonder, is it surprising to you to know that number 6 of those 80 solutions is educating the uneducated girls in the world?
What surprises me about that actually is that it's only number 6 on the list, if that's an order list.
You're like, well, forget number 6. It's
should be number 1. Should be number 1. Yeah, I do. I think reduces population growth, which is massive for the environment. And I also think that women leaders in that environmental space are incredibly powerful. So I'd put it at number 1.
Okay, number 1. I'm with you. I think, you empower young women and just stand back and watch. One of the amazing things here in the US is we talk about, so when all those books were being written about, educating girls, 15 years ago, the girl effect. And if the Pentagon had spent money on educating girls in Afghanistan and Iraq, we would have done better than what we did, what this country did do by invading, which is just sort of like,
Julia Gillard, the old Australian Prime Minister, who now is doing all sorts of amazing work with educating girls around the world, as well as empowering women internationally. She talks about how if we want to hit our global economic objectives for development, for peace and security, for climate change, she says it can only be done if all girls are in school and learning. And I think certainly from the 12 sort of years of tangible experience I've had on the ground, so much changes when you educate girls, and obviously reduction in population is a major part of that. As well as they tend to go into the sort of environmental, social justice type jobs. They're less, this is a massive generalization, but there is actually data to support this, but they're less inclined to go for the sort of commercially minded profit making, let's not really factor in too much about the environment jobs.
Why do you think that is? What's your theory about, them being drawn to those fields?
That's such a big question. I think it's, I don't know whether it's historical or genetic or whatever it is, but there's just much, all the girls in our schools that I talk to, and then later some of the students that I talk to over in Kenya and Tanzania, as well as back here in the developed world, they seem to really care about making a difference. And they are very conscious of their community. So I don't know if it's that, I don't want to use the word maternal, but maybe it's just that sort of concept of knowing always that they have to look out for everyone around them. I think also they're impacted more by the environment. They tend to be more aware of the beauty of their environment. And this is a huge generalization because there are lots of amazing males that are as well, but they just, when we take the kids into national park as a reward, and it tends to more be the girls that are noticing the trees and the environment, and the boys are looking for the lions. Predominantly, there's all those statistics around, for every extra year of schooling a girl has, reduces the amount of children she has by X percentage. 85% of our girls at East Pokot get cut and sold before they're 10 to 11 years old. 85% of them are sold off, and 95% of them get cut. They go through female genital cutting, even though it's illegal. Another one of our education projects is My Voice, which teaches human rights, particularly for girls to acknowledge that they have human rights, which they don't actually know that they have. And those include not being sold into marriage. And when we started down this campaign of how do we support these girls, I was like, this is a massive problem. And, in my lifetime, hopefully I'll see some traction. In the first 2 years, so even last year, for example, we've got what we call our champion mothers, and we educate them with our health clinicians on the ground about girls' rights and the human rights and the effects of female genital cutting and the amount of statistically girls that die from it, and then the ongoing problems that girls that survive have for a very long time. And then these champion mothers go into the villages and they talk to all the women about it. And last year, as a result, we had one of the chief cutters in one of our communities that cuts a number of girls every month. She said, I'm not cutting anymore. It was her income, it was what she did. She was an elder, she was respected for it. She's just stopped totally. So the ripple effect of that is a number of girls are not going to get cut anymore. And most of the mothers now are not sending them to the cutters to get cut. And that's from one program that we're running last year. So I do get excited by the fact that it feels like an overwhelming, huge statistic that's never going to change because it's been there for years, but it has changed. I was Skyping with one of our mothers from the village who was a cutter as well. And I said, why did you stop? And she said, well, 2 reasons. She said, because of, it's the human rights and your education. She told me everything she thought I wanted to hear. Because your program, Cass, is so good, and you told us, you demonstrated and you showed us how it wasn't helping our girls. So I heard that and I stopped. And I said, any other reason? And she smiled and she said, yes, actually, because you've got that My Voice program, and the girls were coming back to me and they were saying, if you sell me or cut me, I'm going to report you to the police. I was like, whoa, awesome. Oh. And she wasn't angry about it, but she was like, yes, so there's also that fear of, now that the girls know their rights, they're standing up for themselves. And it was such a goosebump moment of, wait, these girls who have always just been the victims, and they always talk about themselves as the object or the commodities for their father, that they're the possessions for their fathers and their brothers. They don't talk about themselves as human beings. They talk about themselves as the objects. So to have these girls now changing their mindset completely when they hear that they've got rights that are supported internationally, it's just really awesome. So they're empowered and they're using that power.
That's amazing. The difference between a girl with 0, years of schooling and 12 is 4 to 5 kids per woman, which obviously that statistic, but what that would translate to, if we got going tomorrow and did what you think is the number one thing, and David Attenborough puts in his top 4, and I'm totally convinced, we would have 843 million people less on the planet by the year 2050. And I mean, that would be, so
good. I like that. You need to send me those stats. That's a very, very tangible.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to show you. So this is my favorite when I need so it's called Drawdown, and it's the most comprehensive plan ever proposed to reverse global warming. And it's really fabulous because it's a little bit like a textbook, but it's got the top 80 things, it's got coming attractions. And I like to have this book around, because when people are depressed about the planet, I'm always like, do you realize, there are millions of us, working on the solutions right now.
I really like your positive approach to your work, because I think that's really important. I think people get overwhelmed. There's so much exhausting, depressing news around the world that people just immunize themselves to it. They just, insulate away from it and then don't address it. And so that's a big thing about So They Can Too. We're all about, the joys we get from Africa and how much they have to teach us. Because I think when you don't have a lot of material wealth, you have a deeper sense of community, you have a deeper gratitude for the present moment. And I think all of that is stuff that we lose over here. So I really like the positive spin that you put to your work. I think it's really important.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, there's a psychological condition called well-informed futility syndrome, and that people who just know too much of the bad stuff can just get completely, you get paralyzed.
I mean, I noticed a few years ago, I just stopped stopped listening to the news. It was just too depressing. And so I just threw myself deeper and deeper into my work because I wanted to know that there was something I was doing that was positive that I could lean on when all the exhausting stuff was being heard around the world. So that's great. I'm looking that up. Well-informed
syndrome. You're much more likely to get into action and to be a positive force in your own community when you know that there's good stuff going on, or you're tapped into it, which obviously you are. I mean, what you're doing is amazing, and bringing education to these kids who wouldn't have it otherwise, and then
but I think it also makes the job sustainable. It makes you, like for you probably, knowing that there's hope, you can see the end goal.
The greatest 4-letter word, hope. That's where it's at, people. See you next time.